Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about how Africa holds the title for not only the oldest university, but the richest man of all time, who is Mansa Musa. Forgive me if I mispronounce any of these words. The Mali Empire and the University of Timbuktu. Mansa Musa's rule. Musa I of Mali, also known as Mansa Musa, was the ruler of Mali, the West African Empire, from 1307 to 1332. He is widely considered to be the richest person in history, and he is best remembered across the Middle East and Europe for the brilliant show of wealth during the time of his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. On his way to Cairo, Mansa Musa was accompanied by 60,000 men, which included a sum of 12,000 enslaved persons, all of which who were dressed in brocade and Persian silk, which if you don't know what brocade is, it's just a very intricate, detailed fabric. He himself was directly preceded by 500 enslaved persons, all carrying golden staffs, not to mention the baggage train of 80 camels who each carried 300 pounds of gold. People knew him as incredibly generous and pious, and his spending during his trip was so lavish that the market was flooded with gold, and for 12 years, Cairo's market had not fully recovered. Coleman DeGraff Johnson, 2018. The Mali Empire establishes Timbuktu as a major center of learning. The section of his reign which I would most like to talk about was the later portion. The establishments of economy and education most strongly represent the purpose behind this essay. Under his rule, Timbuktu had soon become the center of trade, culture, and Islam. A university was founded that spread Islam through the markets and university, which made Timbuktu an area for Islamic scholarship. The University of Sankore, or Sankore Madrasa, was restaffed under Musa's reign to include jurists, astronomers, and mathematicians. Muslim scholars from around Africa and the Middle East were drawn to Timbuktu, and while Musa's palace has vanished since then, the university and mosque remain in Timbuktu. Wikipedia Contributors 2021. Timbuktu Learning Centers. The University of Timbuktu is a term used collectively for the teaching community of the three mosques in now Mali. Those being Sankor, Jingurubur, I definitely said that wrong, and Sidiyaya. Sidhiyaya. When Mansa Musa returned from Mecca, he brought architects and scholars whom he employed to establish mosques in Timbuktu. Due to this, scholars from varying backgrounds came to the city to study and live, and this is how Timbuktu came upon the reputation of being a learning and scholarship center through Sahel in North Africa. Sadly, in 1591, following the Battle of Tondibi, teaching had declined, and soon after, Timbuktu scholars immigrated to other learning centers. In 1593, Sultan Ahmad I al-Mansur had cited the scholars were disloyal for his reason in arresting, then killing or exiling many of them. Details about each of the mosques. The Sankore Mosque was erected in the 14th to 15th centuries. It was built on the financial backing of a Tuareg woman from the Aglau tribe. It served as a significant religious and intellectual hub for over 5 centuries. It was prevalent especially during the Askia dynasty, 1493 to 1591, and it was knocked down in 1578 when Qadi al-Aqib ibn Mahmud ibn Umar ibn Muhammad Aqit ordered it to be rebuilt according to the dimensions of the Kaaba of Mecca, as well as adding a mihrab, a niche in the wall of a mosque directing the Qibla, or the direction in which Muslims face when praying. The Jingurber Mosque, sorry, I really should have practiced pronouncing that a few more times, but it was originally built when Mansa Musa returned from his pilgrimage. It was reconstructed between 1570 and 1583 by Imam al-Aqib ibn Mahmud, who was Qadi, a judge or magistrate of a Sharia court of Timbuktu. Reconstruction added the southern portion of the mosque and the wall surrounding the cemetery. The minaret, a type of tower built into or adjacent to mosques, used to project the call to prayer, but also served as landmarks and symbols of Islam's presence, of the Jingurber Mosque is one of the most noticeable landmarks of Timbuktu's landscape. The City Yahya Mosque was initially built around 1400 AD by the Marabouts, a Muslim religious leader, teacher, or holy person usually associated with Sufism. Sheikh el Mokhtar Hamala named after Sidi Yahya al-Tadalisi, who was friend of the ruler Muhammad Nala. Built in the expectation that a holy man would emerge some 40 years later as Sheriff Sidi Yahya, who would be chosen as the Imam. Like with the other two mosques, Sidi Yahya was also restored by Imam al-Aqib between 1577 and 1588. Wikipedia contributors 2023. Down the line, in the 16th century, Moroccan invaders had begun to drive the scholars of Timbuktu away, trade routes shifted slowly to the coast, and the city's importance and prestige dwindled. Scholars continued to drift elsewhere, and at the end of the 19th century, French colonization all but finished the job in deteriorating the former glory of Timbuktu. And while it was recognized as a World Heritage Site, things had declined to such a point that in 1990 it was placed on the list of World Heritage in danger. However, with major improvements to the preservation of the three mosques, the people of Timbuktu had helped fight tooth and nail to get it off the list in 2005. Timbuktu continues to struggle to draw tourist revenue to help preserve the past. The World Heritage Committee keeps the site under surveillance due to construction projects. As it sits on the edge of the Sahara, it also faces the threat of encroaching sands. Due to armed conflict, Timbuktu was placed on the list of World Heritage in danger again in 2012, National Geographic Society 2024. There are three management tools being implemented to protect the site. Number one, revitalization and safeguarding plan of the Old Town 2005. Number two, strategic sanitary plan 2005. The two previous are being implemented despite challenges. And number three, a conservation and management plan 2006 to 2010, which is to be reassessed. The property's management is considered globally appropriate as several groups assure its protection legally, including the community of Timbuktu through management committees of the mosques, the cultural mission of Timbuktu, and the management and conservation committee of the Old Town of Timbuktu. This is strengthened by the consultation with the World Heritage Center, which had placed town planning regulation in the conservation manual. Long-term objectives include extension of the buffer zone by about 500 meters to ensure protection, development of the historic square of Sankor to include corrective measures, extension of the property to include the entire Timbuktu Medina, development of conservation and sustainable management for the site in cooperation with urban commune and the elected members of the territorial communities of Timbuktu, and lastly, the active conservation of the mausoleums. UNESCO World Heritage Center, no date. The impact all of this had. These mosques helped further some notable scholars. Abu Hafs was a grammarian and eulogist whose exile was considered unjust and gained him the label of martyr. Al-Aqib Akit was Qadi of Timbuktu and Imam of the Sankor Mosque and was certified to teach several manuscripts by leading scholars. He also began rebuilding the Sidi Yahya Mosque in 1569, renovated the Jingming Mosque 1570 and the Souk Mosque 1577, and rebuilt the Sankor Mosque the following year. Abu al-Tuwati was most known for establishing the recitation of the entire Quran after Friday prayers. Ahmad Baba was a popular jurist who wrote the Nail al-Ibtihaj as well as the abridgment of the Kifayat al-Mutaj. The writings contained incredible amounts of information on North African scholars and is the primary source of information as to the lives and works of medieval West African Muslim scholars. This was his greatest contribution. Hundreds of thousands of manuscripts were written in Timbuktu. The trade of books has even become one of the most profitable industries. This created an invaluable record of Islam in the history of West Africa. In 2013, Al Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Akim, captured northern Mali and destroyed many of the manuscripts. This was an attempt to implement their jihad against whichever ideas or practices did not conform to their version of a pure Islamic society. Thankfully, most of the manuscripts had been taken outside of the city to Bamako. This initiative was led by Abdel Kader Haidara, who was the son of the respected scholar Muhammad Mama Haidara. The boy's father was also the owner of a family library that contained a serious number of manuscripts. Haidara worked with the local community to ensure that the manuscripts were removed from the area that were at risk to Akim activity. Wikipedia contributors 2023. Musa's reign left a lasting impact on education, art, and architecture. His dedication to learning attracted students from across the Islamic world, and this effort reinforced Timbuktu's reputation and economy. Not to mention the cultural exchange that it initiated helped enrich West African society and connect to broader networks. He helped expand the territory to which Mali's power rivaled even the Mongol Empire in size. His pilgrimage and the accounts of those who witnessed it had brought Mali to Europe and the Middle East's attention. Interest grew and so did trade routes. Eventually, through this, he was capable of influencing later exploration and trade networks across the Sahara. Even if we were just speaking historically, his rule was incredibly influential. The information that remained after he poured into the systems of education led us to understand the developing world better. Earlier studies on astronomy, mathematics, medicine, law, history, geography, and theology paved the way for later pursuits in a multitude of industries. Paraphrasing something I read, because there's no way I'd be able to find it and insert it here because of the just enormous amount of quotes and tweets out there on the internet. The advancements we have made aren't from one big moment, rather from the collective bits and pieces that add up across time. One person studies bugs' wings, and down the line, that research is implemented in making retractable solar panels more functional. I'm not saying they are, but even if it were simply beginner research into those fields, these papers are still invaluable for the foundation they gave/give us. The saddest part about losing these manuscripts isn't only that we lose the input of the people that poured their lives into the research, but that we also lose so much of the understanding that allowed us to get to this point. If we choose not to protect history and something catastrophic sends us back to an earlier point, what would we have to help us remember and move forward? I believe humans are curious and would continue to figure things out, but I'd be doing a disservice not to notice the importance behind this part of history. Thank you for being here. If you're a fan of investigative journalism and philosophy, you can subscribe for free today. If you'd like to further support my efforts, you can subscribe to my Patreon, which will be linked below, which also is a direct link to the article to see my references. Only occasional posts are for purchase, everything else is free and comes about 2 days earlier on average, which also helps me cover research materials, i.e., purchasing texts, as well as my time and effort in development. Along with that, it supports my real life effort in making education free and widespread. I thank you for your support no matter what form. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!